Hello and welcome to Gardening Naturally with Green Fingertips. My name's Josie and I am your natural gardening coach. And today we're talking about winter pruning. I'm going to give you the basics, the need to knows around winter pruning to get you comfortable with pruning to help you to get started. Today we are talking about winter pruning and garden care. So I'm going to be going over the basics and the need to knows behind pruning. There are some in-depth techniques and methods that you could use for different plant families, which we are not going into today because I don't want to blow your mind. I want to get you comfortable with pruning and get you started. So firstly we'll cover the benefits of pruning because there are a lot of benefits. It's kind of a good thing to know to start off with, so you know why you need to colour prune, so why it's important, and how it can benefit your garden and you as a gardener, which is always nice. So winter pruning, in general, winter pruning has a lot of good benefits to it. Pruning in general has got a lot of benefits, but winter pruning is really beneficial for the garden. One, you're tidying up, which for aesthetics and health of your garden, it's very important. There's nothing worse than looking out over your garden in the winter when it's all looking a little bit bare and the leaves have gone, the flowers have gone. It looks messy and muddy and it's not nice. So one of the benefits, as I say, to winter pruning is that you're tidying up your garden. So that's always nice. Pruning in general, but pruning in the winter will promote new growth. So spring growth, naturally when you prune things, it will enhance the vigour of the plant. But if you prune in the winter time, come spring, you're going to encourage more spring growth. You're going to encourage better flowering as well. So if you, wintertime pruning usually encourages the spring growth, the new fresh green growth, and then spring summer pruning will encourage more flowers. So that's a good rule of thumb. But yeah, winter pruning definitely to encourage the new growth. Fantastic. You can remove dead and damaged materials, which will prevent your garden being susceptible to disease over winter, weather damage. Yes, so by removing the dead and damaged material, you're drastically reducing the chances of your plant suffering any disease damage, weather damage. So that's a really good thing about winter pruning. Nip it in the bud, if you like, no pun intended. The lack of leaves, especially deciduous plants, the lack of leaves allows you to see what needs to be dealt with. So you can see the damage, you can see where you need to prune if you need to prune and where you need to tidy up. So that's why winter pruning can be kind of a benefit to it because you've got the leaves there to worry about. So that's kind of the benefits behind winter pruning. There are quite a few benefits around pruning in general, but yeah, generally you can tidy the garden, you can promote the health of your garden, and you can make it all look nice for the spring, give it a good boost for the spring, all in one foul swoop. So it's good. So the need to knows. Now this is the important bit behind the making pruning easier for you. People overthink pruning quite often and they worry about pruning too hard, where to prune and where they're going to cause damage, anything like that. So you don't really need to overthink it, but I've got some need to knows here that will help you to understand it and make it easier for you. So you just go out to your garden and go, right, that needs pruning. This is what I'm going to do. Sorted. It's going to make it much easier for you. So first off, it's quite an important one. Make sure your tools are clean. So whatever you're pruning with, whether secateurs or loppers or hedge trimmers, anything like that, make sure they're clean because with every plant that you prune, it picks up some sap and it picks up any potential diseases that are there and it moves it from plant to plant. So if you clean your tools to start with and then between plants that you're pruning, just give them a quick wash down, give them a disinfect if you can. Even if you cup or a bucket of disinfectant and clean them up and dip them in as you go, it prevents the disease being passed from plant to plant, keeping your garden much healthier all round. So keeping your tools clean, that really does make a big difference in your garden, especially when it comes to pruning. Cold weather. Now I've done something on this in the membership as well, just to touch on that. So cold weather, if you know that you're going to get a heavy frost, snow, or like we've had this week, a heavy cold snap, try not to prune in that sort of time scale. You need to give your plants a good couple of days for the wounds that you make when you're pruning to heal. So if they don't get that time and they don't heal over, you're leaving the wound open to, well, weather damage for a start, cold damage, and any diseases as well, because any damage that's caused, straight away it's vulnerable. It's like when we cut ourselves, you're vulnerable to any infections. So that's basically, you've got to keep that in mind when you're pruning. So if you try time it better, time it when you've got a nice mild time coming up, weather-wise, prune, and then a good few days to let it heal and seal before you think any bad weather's going to be coming. So pruning too much off. Now Now, again, I said earlier, people like to overthink pruning, the amount that they can prune or where they can prune. I always like to think of the rule of thirds. Visually split your plant into thirds, and then the top third is the section that you can prune, if you like. You can tidy up. If it's a healthy plant and there's no disease or damaged wood around, the third, if you split your plant in thirds, if you can prune a third, don't go beyond that third, you'll be safe, you'll be fine. As I say, there's harder rules and methods to follow depending on the families, like clematises or roses or anything like that. So we're not getting into those, but as a general rule, to make pruning easier and making you comfortable with pruning, stick to the rule of thirds. Now, an exception to this rule would be if the plant's got any severe damage or any diseases. Now, if a part of the plant is diseased, you need to write down to the very bottom bit of diseased material. So when it starts to be okay, or a little bit beyond that. So that can often be more than a third. So that would be the only exception. Cut back as much as you need to when it's diseased and damaged. But if it's a healthy plant, just a third, and that tidy it up and it will encourage new growth, keep the plant healthy, keep it all in check, and it'll be much happier for it in the spring. So don't worry about cutting too much off if you stick to that rule. Now, when you're pruning, if you can, try and cut back to the nearest leaf joint or the bud joint where you can see a bud appearing, or you can usually see where they would have been or the leaves would have been. If you cut back to that section, just above that, and that's a healthy place for you to prune. If you leave too much stem between each leaf joint, that will rot back, and then that will be open, leaving your plant open to disease and damage. So cut back cleanly to a leaf joint, making sure your tools are clean, and then you'll be fine. So yes, if you can see the plant, see it all in its glory, when you look at a plant and you see the branches inside like a tree or a shrub, and you can see the stems rubbing or crossing. Now, if the stems cross and rub, they're going to cause friction, and then it's going to expose the bark and cause damage to the plants. This isn't good because it exposes the plants to any disease, weather damage, anything like that. So you want to ideally remove any branches that rub and cross. Just thin them through, the plant through. Now, don't worry about the rule of thirds in this case, because what you're going to be thinning won't be that extreme, really. It's going to be a lot more beneficial to the plant than it will be to cause damage. So that's a really good thing to look out for when you're tidying up your plants. So remove any dead and damaged material. That's the first port of call. So look, assess your plant, look what looks dead, dying back, any damage or anything needs addressing. So dead and damaged material, thin out, cross and rubbing stems and branches to prevent any damage in the future and leaving your plant vulnerable to disease. So remove any of that. So make sure your tools are clean. Don't be afraid to prune too much, but stick to the rule of thirds if you're worried. So split your plant into thirds, and the top third is the part that you can safely prune without having to worry about damaging the plant. If it's healthy, if it's got damaged material, trim back the damaged and diseased material as far as you need to. Don't worry about the rule of thirds on that fact. Prune back to the nearest leaf joint to keep the plant healthy and happy. The new buds and growth will appear from that leaf joint anyway, so if you prune back to that, then you won't have any spare material then to die back and cause that new growth, any disease or damage. So, as I said earlier, there is a lot of in-depth and technical methods behind pruning particular families of plants, which we haven't got into today. I wanted to stick to the basics so I didn't blow your mind. I want to help you get comfortable with pruning, and particularly winter pruning, just to try and benefit your garden a bit more ready for the spring. So if you like this video, give us a thumbs up, and if you want to see more videos like this, don't forget to subscribe and click the bell to see my videos as and when they come out weekly, and I'll see you in my next video.